Hello everyone and welcome to The Edge of Things. So today we are at EclipseCon. You don't see the action, it's right on the other side of this door. The community is on their way, but here I have three great guests and we'll have a conversation about device attestation and what it means in the IoT and edge space. So I'm Frédéric Deviens, I manage IoT and edge computing programs at the Eclipse Foundation, and with me are Donald, Matteo, and Robert. So please introduce yourself to start.
So, hi everybody, Robert Andres. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Eurotech, and in that function also responsible for our relationship with Eclipse.
My name is Matteo Mairo. I'm a senior software engineer at Eurotech, and I'm managing the ESF team that is the project based on Eclipse Cura.
Hello, I'm Don Steed. I am the Director of Software Product Management for Eurotech, responsible for the Cura and Kapua products.
Excellent. So the genesis of this conversation today is really a little thing that Robert and I had the pleasure to work on. And this is the medium.com publication for The Edge of Things. So essentially we thought, oh, we need a way to put some thought leadership in the market and attract the attention of IoT and edge developers, architects, and even executives on important topics. And device attestation was really the first that came up to my mind. So Robert, why was device attestation picked as our first topic to write about?
Yeah, so security in general is one of the big challenges in IoT. Scaling security is one of them as well. So there's a total cost of ownership aspect that is pretty severe if you look into it. So solving that ground up is a challenge that we had to master somehow.
Okay, and now when we say device attestation, what do we mean exactly by that?
Yeah, we can go in a bit more detail then, but it's really giving in a very standardized, specific way a unique identity to a device. One that stays with the device for its lifetime, allowing to identify not an individual device, but even ensure that it's an original device of a manufacturer, for example, and then take it further into other elements.
Yeah, you want to be able to identify the device, you want to be able, in a secure distribution, to filter out devices that have been tampered, for example. So you want to be sure that the identity stays in the device, is not shared, and that you are able, in combination in deployment, to filter out, to create a blacklist of devices that should not be anymore allowed to be in your environment, to allow the security to stay, an environment to stay secure.
Okay, that makes sense. And we'll dig a bit more into the technical implementation details of that a bit later. But from your kind of product owner perspective, Donald, and you're in touch with your tech customers and all of that, and I'm sure. So what has been the genesis for tech to build that kind of feature in your lines of products?
Yeah, as Robert mentioned, security was the main objective, right? So how could we do a secure attestation, meaning how could we subscribe these devices in a way that could scale? So it's security in a scale fashion, right? So for production, how can we do large scale amount of devices in a way that could be done at the manufacturing time?
And security is a big requirement typically for sure in the space. And at the same time, what strikes me, of course, I've been a developer and an architect. Now I'm more on the I would say that the fluffy side of things, but still, what strikes me when I need to write or explain things about this is how complex the whole ecosystem is, how many technologies and little details you need to master. So how do you streamline that as someone who tries to design easy to use products?
Yeah, I think all of us could contribute. So all of us have a portion of this, but it is bringing in partners to come in, and some of it is hardware, some of it is software, and using those conventions. But trying to use industry standards as best as possible. That's the key thing, right? So we're not inventing new processes or procedures. We're bringing partners together to use standard types of functions and means to provide this systematic way of doing things.
Okay, so maybe just to add a bit more, color to this. since we are in this business of like IoT gateways, which typically requires a deep integration of hardware and software, naturally already, all the security aspects there need to be built in a holistic way. Right? That starts with an identity that ends with ongoing external testing to a complete suite of software. So in the business we deal mainly with high value assets. So that could be anything from a heating system to a locomotive, from a pump in a water management system to a PLC that is in a production process or a production line. So all of them have in common that the requirements for security are pretty high. So the technologies we choose to do this are suitable for exactly those kind of use cases.
Okay, that makes sense. And now, if we try to take a layer by layer approach on the way to build such a thing in a specific device, let's say one of your gateways or any other system really, but the fundamental thing is that this is not just about software. You need some hardware components to make that possible hardware. So in terms of hardware, what are we talking about there?
So
You want to go?
I think let me start. We made earlier decision to go to a hardware root of trust that in the form of a TPM 2.0, which is state of the art in the kind of industries we are talking about, and leverage that as the starting point. And
then you have the secure boot, so you need a way to lock the TPM and unlock that one while booting, because you want to protect the different hierarchy of the TPM. So the TPM itself is part of the story at the hardware level, but you need to start this with the secure boot approach that from the powering on of the gateway will check and trust that all the steps and all the software that is running is actually trusted and has not been tampered. Till reaching then the user space, then you have frameworks like FORA or ESF, in our case for the Eurotech version, that continues the check on security and guarantees that the software that is running on top is secure.
Yeah, and for those of you watching maybe who are not aware what the TPM is, because we are there with our acronyms, tech people, right? So TPM means Trusted Platform Module, so it's a hardware component that essentially is secure and can manage security credentials in general, but more typically digital certificates. And then you use those certificates to guarantee the integrity of various parts of your overall solution. So if I take an Eurotech gateway, for example, there's an operating system in there, there's a Java virtual machine, and then Cura on the top of that as a Java OSGI framework. So what pieces of what I just described are secured in order to get attestation for that gateway?
All of them, I can say, because you need to start from the microprocessor. Usually you have burn fuses there in order to check that the booting image is signed as well, and then you are unlocking the TPM, and from the TPM you're using PCRs, so measuring the different software stacks and using them to unlock via the TPM the identities and the trusts, so that from that point on you can use with confidence that the software stack is working and is secure, all that has been unlocked during the boot process.
And then secure boot is another important component, because I suppose that it ensures that the operating system that you are running is actually something that I couldn't take advantage of in order to attack the device.
Yeah, and on top of that, user space usually is not protected. So we have enabled features in order to check that what is running at the operating system level has not been tampered. So we use specific software to guarantee that first the boxes have not been tampered, and then so a protection on the outside of the gateway, but also protection inside of the gateway with the file system check, so that if a tampering happens inside of the gateway at the level of the file system, we are notification of that. For example, is published to the cloud, so that the system administrator can get an immediate notification that a certain gateway in a certain location has been tampered and it can be considered not secure at that point. You can exclude them that device from being able to log in again until, for example, the technician goes to the field and checks or replaces the device.
That's highly useful. And then we discussed in our series, Robert, that this concept could even extend to end users applications. So in the case of
Yes.
Cura, I can write my own apps, package that as OSGI, deploy on the gateway in order to get my own functionalities on the top
Yes.
of your product. So what kind of process or steps would be required for me to secure my own applications in the same way then?
Well, again, I think we are lacking a first step here. We haven't already talked about the device identity per se, which is something that is in conjunction with the TPM at manufacturing being brought into the device, a long living certificate that makes sure a customer can always prove it's a genuine, in this case, Eurotech device. And that's the starting point. And the ability to add, and there's a whole hierarchy of certificates then possible to be implemented that allows the transfer to the actual customer. And that as a basis for a lot of other mechanisms. That includes the software aspect you were pointing out, but also might lead to, for example, a zero-touch provisioning concept, which is a big scaling issue that we have in IoT at scale. The foundation, again, is bringing it down to give it a proper identity, actually a set of identities that allow you to take and start all these measures.
Okay, and what we just described, do we already have that? Maybe not in the open source Cura and Capua combination, but in your everywhere software platform at Eurotech?
Yes, we have it, and that is available with the 1014, Relegate 1014. And so you can leverage all those features in order to guarantee the security of deployment. And on top of that, just as a confirmation of what we did, we obtained the IC 62443 certification. So the -4-2 is part of our security story and guarantees or gives a mark on the fact that we did the right things in terms of security. We are matching the current state of the art in terms of industrial deployments for security.
And that's, we just mentioned that in passing, you've got that particular certification, but that's a tremendous achievement. It's not that easy to get. The tests are really stringent, right?
Yes.
And so this, I would say that this counters, let's say, the opinion in some circles that because, it's got an open source core, that, it would be somehow less reliable or less well designed, and so that it wouldn't be at the same quality of purely commercial offerings.
No, I mean, those kind of certifications clearly prove those voices wrong, right? So I think we've been the first one in terms of a full hardware and software combination with application framework and a gateway, full software defined edge gateway that achieved that kind of level of certification. And you need a deep integration of hardware and software to manage to do this. So that the core of that is the Cura project in Eclipse IoT Working Group is, I think, one of the best proof points we can give to our customers for enterprise-ready kind of software that we deliver through open source.
Okay, that's quite an accomplishment. And I think it's a testament to the great quality work that you did in the open source space at the Eclipse Foundation. And overall, of course, your commercial products on the top of that as well. So that's really fantastic. So I think we have reached, covered at least most of the things I had in mind for this particular conversation. So any of you has last words of wisdom maybe for our audience there?
Yeah, I would say last words, just security and IoT continues to be more and more the focus, right, and importance. And so this is something that, based on Cura Capua, we've really built a foundation and adding in more security layers to that. And as we said, all the attestation, all those steps from a product perspective, trying to bring that and make that easy to customers to scale and get that inherently when they purchase Eurotech products for sure.
All right.
Yeah, open source based and secure is not contradicting itself.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, so that's all for now. Thank you so much, Donald, Matteo, Robert, for this really interesting conversation. Thank you everyone for watching this short episode of The Edge of Things. And I certainly look forward to see you again in our next episode. So I'm Frédéric Desbiens from the Eclipse Foundation. Thank you for watching and see you soon.